Hello, my darling cherubs. Welcome back to my channel. If I had a penny for every single time somebody asked me, Kellyanne, what is a spell? I would be ludicrous, swimming in a pool right now, Elon Musk levels of wealthy, out of touch wealthy.
Egon, this reminds me of the time you tried to drill a hole through your head. Remember that?
But I never bothered to answer the question in a video because I always felt like, you know what, it's really easy to put it into a search engine and get yourself a tasty little result, or indeed a bunch of results on different perspectives. But I have never really shared my perspective in a video that I can remember. Definitely not a dedicated video, so I'm going to be doing that now. Today I have gone for the full Dresden Dolls look, and no, this is not a cold sore on my lip, it is a cut, so please feel sorry for me. Okay, so let's go ahead. I'll dive into my perspective on what a spell actually is in my, through my personal magical lens. Hopefully I can give you some ideas, and more than anything, hopefully I can inspire you. If it's been a while since you made magic, then this is the video for you. Let's get into it. What is a spell? The best way to explain what a spell is, I think, from my own perspective, is that you take your desire and you take your power and you smush them together and you hurl them with intentionality into the ether, and you let the cosmos do its thing, and then you take delivery of the magical package that you've sent out for. That's basically the idea in my mind of what a spell is. I have gone back and forth over time with different decisions about whether it's more of a wish or whether it's more of a command or whether it's kind of equal levels of both. It's sort of like 6 of one and half a dozen of the other. Sometimes it's one and sometimes it's the other. I think spells have different feelings, different moods, different vibes, but essentially that is what is going on. You're taking your own potency, your own belief that you can make something happen, your own sense of sort of like really deep energy from the core of you. You're mixing it together with whatever it is that you want to bring in, what you're calling into your reality, and then you send it out with intention, and then you wait for the result. So that's really basically and simply what a spell is. A spell is a metaphysical form of problem solving, so whereas there are various different actions you would take in the material reality and various different, I guess, more logical or cognitive sort of actions that you would take, a spell is that other thing where you go metaphysical, you go mystical with it. And so it's basically some way of solving a problem or bringing something to you that you don't have, or getting rid of something that you have too much of, whatever it is, but you're taking the mystical route. And therefore, very much I think of a spell as being this other little toolkit that you have, right? Spellcraft is an extra toolkit. If you can think of any problem you would encounter in this reality, and then you think of somebody who is not a witch, they are working with a specific set of tools. They're probably doing research. They're asking their friends. They're thinking about everything that they've come to understand about the situation. They're reaching out for help. They're bringing in ideas. They're brainstorming. And they're thinking about these different things, and they're doing these different things in the material realm to be able to solve the problem or bring in the result or get themselves access to more of what they desire. A spellcaster is opening up another toolkit, preferably as well as that sort of more, straightforward shit. And inside that second toolkit is this kind of collection of ideas around sending something out energetically and bringing something in via the mystical sort of pathway that has been created by sending that desire out with intention. There is one place where I have attempted to define spellcraft in my own terms, and that is in my first book, Rebel Witch. In chapter 13, the spellcraft chapter, I've written, a spell is a formula, usually involving a combination of words and actions, and often utilizing symbolism and correspondences. The formula can be used to shape an event, influence an outcome, or promote a particular vibe or attitude. Spells can be designed to harm or to heal. They can increase or diminish the presence of something. They can starve an ideology or promote it. You can design a spell for protection, inspiration, strength, courage, joy, abundance, ability, or beauty. You can work a spell for yourself, for someone else in your life, for a whole group of people, or for the entire world. Spellcraft is often geared towards external results, such as acing a job interview, passing an exam, or finding a great romantic partner, but internal growth can also be the focus, such as healing from past trauma, letting go of disappointment, or leaving a bad habit behind. I've also written here that a spell can be uniquely designed, or you can use a staple template. Your spells are magical workings. This means you take the intensity of your desire and your intention to reach that desire and direct all that potent energy toward the outcome you want. Your desire fuels your vision, turning it into reality. So that is my explanation of spellcraft in my first book. You might want to think of a spell a little bit like a car, my darlings, like it's a machine of some kind, okay? So the engine of any spell is going to be the vision, what you want to have happen, your intention, your desire, the thing that you're doing the spell for. The fuel of the spell, the fuel that kind of like makes the machine run, that's going to be your power, your potency, your pure like will that comes from your energy. It's magic, baby. It's magic that is going to come from you. It doesn't come from the spell, okay? The spell, the design of the spell, the sort of like look of the spell is dead without you. It is the witch that brings the spell to life. So you're going to bring the magic, okay? The magic is not inherent within the bits and pieces in the spell necessarily, but it is going to come from you. So once you've got your engine, which is like, that's what I desire, that's what I want. And then you've got the fuel, which is like the power, the potency, okay? The stuff that you need to make the engine run. Then all of the rest of the bits and pieces that you use for the spell are kind of the other things that help the car to do its thing. And also the upholstery, you know, the look of the car, the color of the car, the shape, that kind of thing, the design elements of the car. But really, without the engine and the fuel, the car is nothing. It's just a bunch of bits, okay? So I recommend that you think of a spell rather the same way. If you've got your intention and you've got your power, you've got a spell. You don't actually need the other bits and pieces. You can actually have the situation running just very, very simply like that. Or you can have a great big fancy sports Ferrari. It's absolutely up to you what you want to do. So let's say you walked in on a witch doing a spell and you were behind them and you're watching them do a spell. It might be done entirely astrally. So literally you're just watching a witch sitting there with their eyes closed or lying down on the bed. Maybe they're moving their hands around a little bit, but essentially they're not doing it in any material way, but they're doing it very, very much for real on the astral level. Or you might walk in and see a witch in the kitchen, presumably just making a stew, but actually what that witch is doing is a spell, but only the witch knows it, okay? My kitchen witches, you know that's you. Or you might walk in and you might see any number of a plethora of things. You'll see a cauldron, you'll see an athame, you'll see a wand, you know, you'll see all kinds of different bits and pieces. There might be poppets, there might be crystals, there might be tarot cards, there might be random things like Rubik's Cubes and lollipops and disco balls, okay? Like, depending on the flavor of the witch and the type of thing that they're into for that working, you could be seeing all kinds of things. You might see a circle laid out with string on the floor or with crystals or whatever it might be. So you'll see any number of things. The mechanism, the design of the spell is not really what makes it run, but it helps it to run. It brings everything more into life. But actually, the vast majority of witches do feel that they could do a spell without any of the fancy stuff, without any tools, without any ingredients, just with the power of the mind and the desire, you know, that real sort of connection between what you want and how much you fucking want it, all right? You smush them together and you send it out, and that is the spellcraft. The other stuff is just kind of like the very fancy, beautiful nuts and bolts, and a lot of witches like to have that stuff, but we do generally en masse believe that it is not necessary. It is the engine and the fuel that are the things that really matter. What type of car we have, or whether or not we even have the ability to have a car through having the tools and the ingredients and everything, you know, that's really down to the witch, what is going on with them, where they are in their life, etc., what they're dealing with. As long as they've got the engine and the fuel, they've got a spell. I even know some witches who say that they no longer use any tools or ingredients or props or anything like that because it distracts from what they're doing. So different witches have different philosophies on how much the bits and pieces are even a necessity in spellcraft, and some of them feel that it holds them back from doing the most potent workings that they can. They just like to work with the feeling, okay? They hold high the vision, whether they're visualizing it or whether they've written it down or whatever it is, and then they like really just inject it with the pure power that they need to get the thing done. They don't work with anything else. They don't work with any tools. Other witches will work with like 50 different things during the course of a working. It is not any hard and fast rules. It's really what you feel is appropriate and what you've got at your disposal. A spell does not have to be pretty. It just has to work. It doesn't have to be long and drawn out and full of purple prose and lots of fancy props. Again, it just needs to work. It needs to have your heart in it. It needs to be something that really comes from the core of you, comes from your guts, comes from your sense of what most needs to happen in order to make something anything else happen. So it's very deep. I think spellcraft can often be incredibly intimate, and it really has to come from that like deep feeling of desire to break something or make something or change something or pursue something, you know, to develop a strength, to sort of redefine and chisel a weakness, those kinds of things. So it doesn't have to be pretty, it doesn't have to be long and drawn out, it doesn't need to be scripted. It can be scripted, but it can equally just be spontaneous and something that like in the moment you just realize it's the time now to cast a spell. It doesn't have to have a lot of pretty ritual packed around it or anything like that. But it can do. It can be incredibly performance based. It can be really artistic. It can be different to anything you've ever seen or read anywhere. It can be a spell that you read out of a book that you got results with, that you really love, that you may not even have tweaked or changed or anything because you see that it brings the results in so very well. It really can be a piece of you, something that you invest weeks into writing and planning and pre-planning. You might order ingredients for it. You might polish up your tools. You might consecrate your entire altar again, bless it all to fuck in order to do this spell. You might time it by the moon, time it by astrology. Or it might be something that you literally just come home one day from work and say, I've fucking had enough. And you just start building your energy up, and you're going to fucking send it out right then and there for something that you want. And it's going to be really intense. All spells should feel power packed, I think, but every single spell feels different. You know, the raising of the energy that you use in the spell is different. The way that you feel after you've done the spell is different. Sometimes you're going to feel really daisy fresh and fine and actually inspired by having done the spell. Sometimes you're going to feel super drained. You might feel doubtful or unsure, or you might feel like you're walking on air and everything in your life is about to get better. I don't think it helps to be prescriptive about how we should feel about spellcraft or how we should do spellcraft. And one practitioner may have one spell be incredibly different to the next one that they're going to do or the one that they did before. Lots of witches do tend to have some kind of format or some kind of collection of formats that they like to stick to and work with. So you will notice that different witches have kind of like different characteristics when it comes to how they approach spellcraft and their preferred styles of spellcraft. But you may surprise yourself, okay? Lots of witches find that they switch from their usual MO and they go in a different direction and they try different things. And you know, I'm very encouraging of that over here. So yeah, it doesn't need to look any particular way. You don't have to use tools, but you can. You don't need ingredients, but you can use them. You don't have to visualize, but you can. Lots of people who can't visualize still do spellcraft. So there are loads of different ways to do spells. You know, some are very short and sweet. Some are like very unexpected. Some are grandiose, darling. Whatever the witch feels like and whatever the witch senses is necessary for that working. At this point, some of you will probably be asking me, well, okay, Kellyanne, if you do not need all of the other stuff, all of the fruity stuff, what's the point in having it? And the point in having it is that we work with symbolism. Symbolism is the shorthand for the language of power. Symbolism is so potent, and any of you who are card slingers are going to know exactly what I mean by this, because I feel I work with symbolism all day, every day, because I am a full-time tarot card reader, okay? So it really is a language of symbols, and we're looking at the symbols, we're interpreting the symbols, we're using the symbols to bring us into closeness with the strategy that is going to take our life in the direction that we desire it to go. So the symbolism is so powerful, it can make us address our shadows, it can make us change everything in one day. In spellcraft, a pentacle is not just, you know, an image of a pentacle. An athame is not just a small knife, okay? Like these things, the cauldron, the poppet, whatever you're working with, the string, the scissors, everything, all of those things are not just those things. A mirror is not just a mirror, you know? A piece of clothing is not just a piece of clothing. Everything is viewed through magician's mindset in spellcraft. And so every single thing that is being used, every ingredient, you know, every seasoning, like everything that is happening has meaning. We have applied spiritual symbolism to it, or we are using it because of the pre-applied consensus spiritual symbolism that it holds. Many witches get their symbolism from traditional witchcraft. Many witches get their symbolism from pop culture. Many witches fuse those things together. I know that I fuse those things together. There are definitely a few things on my altar that you would expect any witch to have. Okay, the cauldron is very prominent there. The crystal ball is very prominent. The poppet is prominent. But I also have a disco ball on my altar. I have children's toys on my altar, that kind of thing. So it's very much a fusion of different things. I have Joan of Arc on my altar, but I also have Freddie Mercury on my altar. So depending on the witch, what they use as their language of symbols will really tap them in to the power that they need, the potency they're looking for, and the way that their personality interacts with and has a relationship with spellcraft. So symbolism is really the whole animal, and even if you're not using physical things in your spells, whatever is going on astrally and whatever you are conjuring up astrally, that's going to have symbolism too. If you write things down and you sort of do the spell through story magic and things like that, every single thing that you're writing down has symbolism. You're probably not just going to write it, straight. You're going to get very fruity with it. It's going to be very symbolic, okay? Every single character, every single thing that happens in the story has magical significance. You mean something else by it. It becomes symbolic in nature. And when things get symbolic, they get gigantic, baby. So exciting. One thing it's important to remember when it comes to defining spellcraft is that different witches have different ideas about what spellcraft is. So you might meet one witch and you'll ask them, what is a spell? And they will say, oh, it's a kind of energetic technology for hacking reality. Then you'll meet another witch and you'll say, what is a spell? And they will say, oh, it's when I ask the ancient gods to put their hands upon my life and change things up. So it's working with the energies of more powerful and potent and ancient forms of spirit or being, and they bring the results in. You might ask somebody else and they will say, oh, it's like a self-transformative psychodrama. I don't really think anything energetic or necessarily metaphysical is happening. It's more that I'm changing my internal landscape up by doing something that makes me feel things and see things differently. So different witches have different ideas of what is happening. And so it might be cool for you at this point in time to put your finger on what you think is going on when you're casting spells, or what do you imagine would be going on with the spells you're thinking of casting. And by the way, baby, if it's been a while since you cast a spell or you've never cast one yet, is it time as well? Because maybe this has kind of like stoked the fires and you feel like doing a spell right now. I know I do. I know I do. And darlings, while I'm on the topic of what witches believe about spellcraft, I will also say that witches have different levels of belief in terms of the order of importance of spellcraft in their practice. Some witches do spells very, very rarely. Some witches do them all the time, super regularly. Some witches believe that they should only break out spellcraft for the very important things, okay, the high stakes priorities in life, and other witches actually enjoy doing very low stakes magic. So, just to keep their hand in and to keep practiced, they might cast a spell just to see like a blue bird somewhere in the next few days, Oh, in the next few days, I'm going to see a blue bird in a film or in a tapestry or in the sky, depending on the time of year. You might witch for somebody to like make a great recommendation to you for something. For example, I once witched just for somebody to recommend a good film to me. And it worked. So yeah, you can do very low stakes, very silly, very comedic magic, or you can save it for that top shelf shit where you're just pulling out the big guns, and spellcraft is something that you would only do for those massive big priorities in life, those massive things where you feel like I've got enough desire to be able to fuel that fucking engine and I almost can't help myself, like I have to do this, it's so high stakes. A lot of witches, very much combine both, and they really sort of feel into when is the best time and what is the best reason to cast a spell. When it comes to looking at the types of magic that a witch can do, I mean, that would be a completely different whole other video. There are so many choices, guys. There is a plethora of different shit to choose from. You can design something that completely came out of your own mind, just totally your own inspiration, you've never seen or read it anywhere, or you can lean back into some of the classics, okay? In my book, Rebel Witch, I have a breakdown of some types of magic. Some are very classic and really there's a lot of lore behind them, a lot of writing about them, and some of them have very ancient origins. And then other types are just like so contemporary. So I've got here moon magic, candle magic, poppet magic, cord cutting, glamour magic, sigil magic, sex magic, tarot magic, elemental magic, mask magic, banishing, binding, hexes and curses, protection magic, blessings and cleansings, art magic, energy gifting, memory magic, story magic, magic playlists, food magic, fiction or game magic, and internet magic. And that is only scratching the bastard surface, my darlings. There's so much more. So you can do your research on different forms of spellcraft. You can combine different aspects of different ideas about spellcraft. You can keep it really trad, you know, and read a lot of literature from different amazing authors about how to put different types of magic into action. Or you can really go with something wild and free, something that came to you in a dream or a daydream, something based on a poem or a film or a book. You know, as long as you characterize and symbolize or define your intention, and then you ball up your power, and then you release that power towards the desire, you're doing a spell. You're doing a spell. And I'm just going to mention this very quickly because I know at least one person is going to ask me in the comments if I don't. What about accidentally spell casting? What about if I really, really, really want something and I accidentally send power towards it, but it's not really what I genuinely wanted, it's just a fantasy? I have talked about that in one of my Quick Bites series videos, and I'm going to leave that down below for you, okay? So please go over there if that's something that you are worried about. I do have strong opinions on that and they may help you out. Fellow magic makers, thank you so much for spending some time with me today. I really appreciate your attention. If you would like to get a witchy brainstorming with me, you can buy either a single session or a package of 3 or 6 sessions over at my online store, and we can get into your needs for magic, how you feel about your journey of witchhood, and how to make it pop the fuck off, okay? Come and talk to me one-on-one, and whatever issues you have, whatever questions, whatever insecurities you're dealing with or worries, we can talk about that and get it sorted. I also have 3 readings in particular if you're after a tarot reading and you would like one about your witchhood, your mysticism, spell casting, that kind of thing. There are 3 options that are really good. I will also leave them down below. Darlings, I am organising my next workshop, my next 3-hour live interactive workshop for the new year. Please keep your eye out for it. It's going to be a chaos magic workshop that is going to encourage you to use chaos magic theory and practice to make 2025 everything that you wish it to be.
This shit just got real.
Okay. And by the way, guys, I do have an Instagram, I do have a Facebook, and I'm sometimes on TikTok. I sometimes can be found on TikTok. So I leave all the links for my social medias down below, as well as the link to my poetry Instagram. If you are into poetry and you want to check that out, you can also check out my Patreon and everything else I've got going on Planet Maddox. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate you. Much love and bye for now. Blessed be. Mwah.